Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, like those transformers that combine to make one giant robot, we are Kenny and Renny. I know of the parts of that giant robot. I'm the head. I'm pretty sure I'm the heart too. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what Ken is yet, but we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out as we go along. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a tidy victory by the Winnipeg Jets, who seem to have their game back to where you would want it to be. I know there were some people a little bit worried the last time they played the Canucks, and then that Buffalo Sabres game. I think it's good that we saw them against this Canucks team because we can draw a comparison between the two. But before we get all into that, I know there's going to be some of you out there in Kenny and Renny land in the chat room. We're going to think you're pretty smart. You're going to take a look and you're going to see, well, Renny's not at home. Renny's not in his office. Renny's clearly in a hotel room somewhere. And if you don't know by now, you should know, or I'll inform you. I'm on the Alexander Ovechkin watch. So I just came from the game that they played against the Buffalo Sabres, losing that game 8-5 in the process, which has, we'll get into talking about that, but opened up the door for the Winnipeg Jets to take a commanding spot, I think, in the race for the President's Trophy. But some of you are going to be like, well, how is he going to break down the Winnipeg Jets game when he was clearly at the Washington Capitals game, asking Alexander Ovechkin questions after the game? And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. If you didn't know this before, you should know it now. I'm the national media. You may have heard that. You may have heard it. Now, I'll remind you if it's needed. But that's just how it rolls with the national media. In fact, maybe I'm selling myself short here. National media would mean I'm covering, in Canada, and that's it. International media has a nice ring to it, down crossing borders. They tried to tariff me on the way through. I said, none of that. We won't be having that. But crossing borders, doing this over here, this is just how it goes, okay? When you're the national media or the international media, you've got an eye on all of the games, okay? You have to. You're the national media. You're the international media. You have to have an eye on all games. So there's 8 games tonight. I'm like a spider. I got 8 eyes on 8 games, and that's how it goes. I took in this game, got a good solid look at it, and what I saw in this game is just another example of the Winnipeg Jets kind of carrying out that, let's not change things. Let's just keep doing what we do right, even though the Vancouver Canucks jump out there, get the first goal of the game. There's just zero panic to a Winnipeg Jets team when they are on their blueprint and they know how to play it. And that's what you're seeing out of that game tonight. Dominant first period by the Winnipeg Jets. The Vancouver Canucks are the ones that score. I think there's a pretty egregious mistake in there. Ken doesn't think so. A lot of people texting me, talking to me about whether it was offside or not. Let's try and get that one out of the way right now. We don't want to spend too much time going on that because you know how I feel about the refs and people getting crazy with the refs. I personally thought it was offside. But anyone out there who thinks that the refs are finding a conclusive view of it being offside and not giving it to the Winnipeg Jets and running with a conspiracy theory on how the Winnipeg Jets are just getting jobbed, and here comes Gary Bettman. Gary Bettman grabbed a microphone somewhere in a shadowy layer somewhere and said, don't allow that goal for the Winnipeg Jets. Listen, if there's conclusive evidence that goal gets turned over, and while I think the evidence shows that it's 95% unlikely that play wasn't offside, it's got to be conclusive. That's just the way it goes. And I know a lot of people are saying, and I had someone send it to me, bird's eye view showed that was clearly offside. Here's the problem with the bird's eye view. It's from center ice. It's not directly above the blue line where it has to be. And when you go on an angle like that, when the player lifts his skate the way that the Vancouver Canucks player lifted his skate in that situation, if you are coming from an angle from behind, you are going to see more white ice based on the fact that the angle is going in between the player's skate and the blue line, right? I'm going to tell you right now, I think that this is one of those ones that the officials are saying, look, this is offside. we can tell, like if we were allowed to use our judgment in this situation, this is an offside goal, but they have to be conclusive on this. And the problem with the blue line shot is that in one frame, it changes from both the player's skate and the puck not crossing the blue line. But in that frame, it looks like the skate is a lot closer to going over the blue line than the puck is. And then in the next frame, they're both over the blue line, but the puck is just barely over the blue line and the skate is well over the blue line. So logic would tell you that if in the previous frame, the player's skate being closer to being over the line and the puck further back, and in the very next frame, that player's skate being further up and away from the blue line and the puck just barely over, logic would dictate that that play wasn't offside, but they don't have the frame. It's in between frames where those two cross. So in that situation, this is just how this goes. It has to be conclusive. You don't send someone for a life sentence if you don't know for sure they did the crime. That's what we see in that situation there. And I'll be honest with you, I have zero problem with it. You know how Renny feels about reviews. All I want to know is, did the puck cross the line or not? If you are butthurt over the fact that a player may have got a fraction of an advantage crossing the blue line in that situation, I think you're kind of losing sight of what this is all about here. Regardless, in the end, it didn't matter, but boy, oh boy, it's all anyone would be talking about right now if it had been 1-0 in that game. But Winnipeg Jets played their game, stuffed it down the Vancouver Canucks' throat, made that one mistake there. It ends up in the back of their net. After that, they just continue doing what they're doing, get a goal that will break down with Kyle Connor's goal. The second goal is just everything that you're kind of looking for from the third line. And just basically, going back to, which I'm kind of like locked into my head the last couple of games after talking to Spencer Carberry after the Minnesota Wild Washington Capitals game, that I saw. Just the idea of the tiny little wins that allow you to win. Well, the Winnipeg Jets in this one, they win on the skill, clearly, with Cole Perfetti. They go out, they win on the toughness aspect of it, being able to go create more chaos and get to the front of the net and just kind of rugby scrum one into the net. They win, you can call it skill on the Kyle Connor. You can call it structure on the way they break that puck out. You can call it a win on structure, basically just in the idea of how tough sledding it was for the Vancouver Canucks on this night. You can say they won it on goaltending, in that as much as, and we'll get into that, as much as I like the shot by Kyle Connor, I do not like the goal allowed by the goaltender in that situation by Thatcher Demko. So the Jets win it. I mean, you get the edge in almost all these categories. I know it was a 3-win. I don't think that game was close. I think the Winnipeg Jets were clearly the better of the two teams. And it is right that they end up winning that game because they earned it. And that's that. That's what I've got to say about the whole thing. Time to bring the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny. Now, Ken, I may be doing this for dramatic effect, or I may be doing it.
Doesn't sound like you.
My eyesight is starting to slip on me here, but we all knew you were going to come in here looking like $1 million, but I want to get the old shades on just to make sure that I got a nice, tight, good look at what Frankie and the boys got you rocking. And you look like $1 million, of course. Well done by those guys, as Ken is going to be like a model walking the runways in Paris over the next little while as Frankie's got him done up right here. I know I like this bad boy that I've got with the
yes,
actually,
sir.
Now that I think about it, maybe you know what? Krevy would stop me and say, hey, that ties Canucks colors, is what he'd say. I'd never even realized it. Didn't think it would matter since I'm down covering a blue and yellow team and a red and blue team. But liking what we got going on here, you want to like what you got going on, all you got to do is head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up, right? No need for these specs anymore after that. Ken, what we are in need of is a little bit of Kenny's analysis and his take on what happened in this game. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. The Canucks looked like a team that was at the end of a 6-game road trip, but I mean, I thought they kind of battled. They didn't have a ton in the tank. I thought they battled hard, but structurally, the Jets really just did not allow much to be had defensively again here, outside of the goal that we're just talking about on the kind of the breakdown. Suter sort of sneaking in on the Tyler Myers entry, getting sort of past Logan Stanley and through the middle, kind of untouched, and then made a really perfect shot. Pius Suter, just having a exceptional year, Sean. And again, we'll get to this in the summertime, but Suter's got to be a guy who's on the radar of a lot of teams as a pending UFA, don't you think? I mean, I don't want to dive into it too much today, but I liked a lot of what he did in the game today. I mean, I don't think he plays a super physical game, but he's got some size and, goes to the hard areas, seems like a pretty smart two-way player. But again, in terms of the Jets, yeah, I mean, so they're much better structurally from the game in Vancouver, where they were just way too loose. Their forecheck wasn't there. The guys were getting caught on the forecheck. They just weren't playing to their structure and style. Today, it was more of a template game for me. Yes, there were some breakdowns, sure, fine, but there weren't a ton in terms of the quality that was allowed. Canucks had a couple of bursts, but I thought they did a great job of keeping Quinn Hughes in check. I mean, we've talked about him a ton this year, Sean. This is another, if the Canucks could be a playoff team, and it's looking less likely that they will, this is absolutely a sort of stake through the heart type of loss for them at the end of a road trip. But, I mean, Hughes is a guy who's getting hard consideration, but Jets really kind of nullified him. And again, I give Quinn a lot of credit for battling through, injury, adversity, everything else. But, 2 shot attempts, and we're used to Quinn. And again, 27-08, incredible. But we're used to Quinn kind of putting his fingerprints all over the game. And I just didn't see that kind of game from him. And I think the Jets' defensive structure had a lot to do with that. I thought the Adam Lowry line was fantastic. And Sean, we talk about repeatable goals all the time. And Mason Appleton's goal is, it's an absolute playoff special, as Scott O'Neill called it. Hard drive to the net. Nikolai Ehlers' spin around pass. Lowry gets a piece, hacking and whacking. And there's Appleton to, shovel home the mail. But you don't shovel home. You don't clean up the trash, Sean, unless you're willing to get ridden into the blue paint and being able to finish the job. So, that was impressive. Obviously, we're going to talk about the highlight reel special from Cole Perfetti at some point. But, I mean, to your point about the shot on Kyle Connor, elite release and everything else. But that's a shot from distance that, and again, I applaud and appreciate everything that Kyle does to create the spacing, incredible explosiveness through the neutral zone. He sort of gets both defensemen kind of not quite banging in. It wasn't quite Keystone Cops, but he created just enough separation to open up the spot between the legs of the defenseman to rip home the shot. Is sort of a sneak attack disguised through the feet. And yeah, I'm with you. Demko had a lot of unreal saves today, Sean. That's a goal that with a 1-goal lead, you cannot allow. I understand he's battled through injuries and everything else. You cannot allow for a team that is absolutely clinging to every last bit of life in a playoff spot. That's a goal that can't happen. And that's got nothing to do with Kyle Connor. Great shot, but that's a shot from distance, a wrist shot that's got to be stopped, quite frankly.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Now the star of this is the breakout, right? Because what you're doing, and what the kind of failure of the Vancouver Canucks really on this, other than the goaltender not stopping a puck, that I think we both agree you have to have. Now, this is one of those ones, Ken, I wanted to make this clear, because guys like us will come out and we're supposed to break these things down. We'll come on these shows and be like, oh my God, this guy's got to have that. Like, that is a whip that Kyle Connor fires at the net, right? And he fires it in the right spot. He catches him sleeping in that spot a little bit there. And I think what you'd have, if a guy like Thatcher Demko was truly honest and watching a show like this, he'd turn and he'd be like, Yeah, I'd like to see you guys stop that shot, right? Like, I'd like to see
Totally
the
fair.
common man, like pros versus Joes. How many goaltenders have we played with that wouldn't have got beat on that very same shot, right? So we need to like make it abundantly clear. Kyle Connor is a goal scorer. A lot of times what goal scorers do is they just find the soft spots in a goaltender, and he found the soft spot in that spot there, and he whipped a hard shot. Like if you go take a look and you break that down into slow motion, that shot gets to the back of the net and it gets there right quick. But this is the NHL where you face superhuman shots, and you have to, as a goaltender, to be a starting goaltender and to go to the playoffs, you got to be able to stop shots like that. Right now, everyone wants to make an excuse in those cases, because I can tell you right now, if it went the other way, there'd be a lot of people who weren't trying to tell you, oh, well, no, something happened, and Kyle, or excuse me, Connor Hellebuyck, couldn't have made that save for whatever reason. This is, like you said, Ken, in a game where the Vancouver Canucks were hanging by a thread, grasping at this game. And I thought, to your point, Ken, doing a really good job of playing kind of, like in the end, the Winnipeg Jets and the Vancouver Canucks both, I thought, did a good job for the most part of protecting the home plate in this game and playing good defensive hockey. The Jets weren't way out shooting them. They were outplaying them, I thought, and they were the better team. And I think usually that team ends up winning. And that's what happened on this night. But this is also one of those nights that really could have turned into hey, they're up 1-0. The Winnipeg Jets haven't scored going into the third period. Now, if you get a break or a bounce or something goes your way and you're the Vancouver Canucks and you could turn this into a 2-0 lead, this could be one of those games you desperately need to make the playoffs that you steal and you walk away from. And that balloon gets popped in a big way by Thatcher Demko not stopping that shot. So I agree with you 100%, Ken, that one. But let's go to the other idea of that, because let's go into the second goal. There ends up being the game winner in this game, and in a game where the Winnipeg Jets, as they always do and have been doing the entire season, make it really, really the home plate area an inhospitable place for other teams to go. The Vancouver Canucks doing the same thing, but in the end, the Jets went and took their greatest strength on this night, the Vancouver Canucks protecting the front of the net, and just muscled their arm behind their back and broke it, I thought, with that goal. How do you think that mindset played out for the Winnipeg Jets? How did that play out?
Yeah, I mean, Mason Appleton was talking about it, and that's how I kind of open up the story here that's going to be posted at freepress.com. I mean, so you got a 1-1 game. Instead of trying to turn it into a snake charmer game like in years past, Sean, Jets just go to basic hockey. What do you need to do in a tie game? Get to the blue paint. I mean, credit to Ehlers for the spin around play that he made, but like that play is created by Adam Lowry going to the net and by Mason Appleton going to the net. And, Quinn Hughes can't handle Adam Lowry in front. And then there's Mason Appleton, getting tackled essentially. But you go to the hard areas, you get rewarded. That is playoff style hockey. Those are the goals you need to score in a 1-1 game when, at times Connor or Thatcher Demko was playing, like he was a couple of years ago when he was, I think he was a Vezina candidate in the last stretch of time here. And when he has been healthy, he's been great. Obviously, this year's been tough. This was his 20th start today. So, but yeah, the Jets crashing the net, that's, again, and for all the people, and again, it's beautiful. You love the passion, but for all the folks online who, wanted to know and were questioning Scott Arniel for putting these lines together. Oh, someone even suggested, which was ridiculous, oh, Scott Arniel should be fired for putting these lines together. Are you kidding me? The guys led the Jets to a 51-win season through 74 games. He should be fired because, you know what? Scott Arniel doesn't really have a pulse on his team. Come on, people. This guy knew what he was doing. Are they optimal when it matters most? We'll see. But the premise was to get a big and strong guy that can be a crease crasher with some of the skilled players. In that sense, that's Niederreiter with Nemesnikov. Nemesnikov also driving the net. Perfetti elevating his game to another level that we've been seeing, to the point where he is a driver now, and he's allowed to go in and be a driver on his own line. and Ehlers bringing the speed element to the, battering ram of Lowry. And like you said, the head of the spear in Appleton. So like once in a while, the coach knows what he's doing, and the coach has known what he's doing a lot of the time this year. So that's pristine roofing wake-up call territory. And I don't mean to bring this up. And like I said, we don't want to tell fans how to fan, but this is one of those examples where, again, this is not blind faith in a coach, folks, but you can trust that Scott Arniel knows what he's doing when he's putting lines together, when an injury forces a scenario. So that for me is going to be pristine roofing wake-up call territory.
Kenny tells all you folks out there who don't like to tell fans how to fan, and then goes right ahead and tells fans how to fan. And that's the pristine roofing wake-up call on this one. You know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the pristine roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down to your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Folks, a house just 2 or 3 doors down from mine just had the pristine roofing wake-up call. It looks like $1 million. They were in and out so fast. I don't know. Maybe they heard the snowstorm was coming. Maybe they were worried Renny was going to pull out his ladder, walk over a couple doors and try and walk up on the roof with them. And their insurance probably couldn't cover something like that. But regardless, house looks amazing. Give your house the pristine roofing wake-up call. You'll be glad you did. I go back to this, Ken, and I think personally what we see from Scott Arniel in this situation is what I had talked about when they first put these players together. Go to the front of the net and you will work with a guy like Nikolai Ehlers. He talked about it the other day, and this kind of like, when I'd asked this, and it was interesting. I don't think you were there for it, but it was kind of funny. I asked him a question and he kind of got into it. And then I asked him another question. He's like, well, I kind of feel like I just answered that question with what I just said there, right?
I was there.
You were there.
I was there.
Like happens a lot of times with questions that seem like they're going to fall flat, what the athlete then does after that is goes like, what can I add to this that I already haven't said? And then they go searching for what to add. And that's what he did in that situation. And one of the things that he talked about is like, he's a guy, maybe almost to his detriment in the past, but he's trying to shoot from anywhere. Actually, this wasn't a response to that. This was a response to Alexander Ovechkin, because this was before the Washington game. But it's one of the things that makes Adam Lowry work with Nick Ehlers. It's one of the things that makes Mason Appleton work with Nikolai Ehlers, because Nikolai Ehlers wants to put the puck on net at all times, whether it's going to be a high chance of him scoring, a low chance of him scoring. He's a big believer in volume and get the puck to the front of the net. Now, when you take guys like Adam Lowry and what he did tonight, this is a very simple play, folks. It's Adam Lowry saying, I'm going to get to the front of the net. And right now, the guy trying to keep me to the front of the net, I don't think he's able to keep me from doing it. And in fact, I feel like it's like, hey, Ken, have you ever been in a tug of war before? And once you start losing that tug of war, all of a sudden things go south, right? There's every once in a while you can dig in and pull back and get people going in the other direction. But for the most part, once you start losing that tug of war and the momentum starts going against you, you lose it. Well, it's not a tug of war. It's kind of two guys doing the opposite, pushing in the same direction. But Adam Lowry gets his guy going in the wrong direction, and then just like one of those tackle sleds on the football field, he just pushes his guy straight in towards the goaltender. I had wondered for a second if there would be a goaltender interference challenge on this, and then when I saw the replay, I thought to myself, you know what, Rick Tocchet, as a former power forward himself, probably looked at that replay and thought, damn, that's good hockey right there by that guy. Because what happens in that situation is he starts driving his guy into the back of his net. As a goaltender, you look through your periphery and you see the same color pants you're wearing being pushed in towards your face. And now that's going to take things and make it a little bit more chaotic and harder to follow what's happening in that play. Then the puck gets thrown there. It gets bounced off those couple of players. Now it gets to the goaltender, but he's not able to corral it because there's too much confusion going on. There's too much chaos going on. And then following in on that chaos, like he's surfing on, behind the wake of a wake boat, there's Mason Appleton to clean it up and pop it in the back of the net. This is playoff hockey style goals. This is, I want it more than you want it, or this is I'm just stronger, and it's survival of the fittest, and we're the fittest in this situation. This is like, let's just get into it right now. This is the TCB lamplighter of the game for me, because this is absolutely the kind of goal you want to be scoring in a game that matters. This mattered for the Vancouver Canucks. The Winnipeg Jets are finding a way to make it matter, and if it's the President's Trophy or holding off the Dallas Stars, it's working. But this, to me, is a repeatable goal time and time again. This is the kind of goal you can win a championship off of. And I'm just saying, for me, that's the TCB lamplighter of the game. Ken, did you want to weigh in with yours before we go on? Because I think some other people are going to have some other thoughts.
No, I love the goal, but I'm a sucker for a little dangleitis. So Perfetti's walking of Derek Forburton rooftops goal is going to be my choice. But again, I'm not arguing with your choice. I'm just in the sense I'm not agreeing with you. So I'm leaving you with the repeatable goal, and I'll take the highlight reeler today.
Hey, it's beauty versus the beast over here. That's exactly what's happening. He's pulling out the beauty and the beast. He's looking good in his Vittorio Rossi suit, and now he's going the beauty versus the beast routine. That's our TCB lamplighter of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. Share with us your lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny or Renny to gift you your own 8-pack, you can head on down to 11290 Kenniston and join them in their tap room, where they've got lots of 8-packs for 15 packs or more on sale of Lamplighter and Blueberry and Cold IPA and a whole bunch of great stuff. Even more on tap for you to try out. And of course, the pizza and the food's amazing. Go check it out, folks. And that brings us to our Lampy winner from our last show, and that would be Nick Lynham. Nick, line them up, buddy, because you just won a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. First, though, you got to direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your name, send me your email, and I'll have the fine folks. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. I'm going to tell you, Nick, and I think you know this already, it is the nectar of the gods. Well, we started talking about it, and it deserves more than just a passing mention. Let's get into the Cole Perfetti goal and the beauty that it was.
Oh, man. It's so in a 2-1 game, and this is something that you don't, if you're Cole Perfetti, the only way you do this is if you're sure that you can beat him on the play, right? Because in a 1-goal game, you're a very defensively responsible player. You don't want to get poke checked on a toe drag special just inside the offensive blue line that turns into a rare odd man rush for the opponent. So Cole Perfetti, admittedly after the game, is saying, I'm trying to bait him into opening his legs, and he absolutely did. And once you're by him, Sean, the toe drag is impressive in itself, but you still have to beat the goalie. And once you beat the defender, Perfetti thinks that he has time. All of a sudden there's a stick between the legs, and you're like, oh crap, I'm going to get tripped. So you're kind of like, now you're almost rushing your shot. Because, and Cole said to me when I asked him, he's like, I'm thinking after I toe drag Forbert, I'm going to deke. Like, he's probably thinking forehand, backhand, or backhand, forehand, backhand, shelf. You don't have time in that situation when the stick is between your legs and you're about to be falling. So he roofs his shot. This is just like high level, elite level stuff. Cole said, he tried it before, but didn't get the finish. And I'm just going to put it this way, Sean. Mason Appleton said flat out after the game, when he was asked about the goal, you don't see goals like that often, because everyone in the building on a toe drag thinks that either the player is going to get rocked or the play will get turned over. Instead, when you're able to execute that with the level of, speed and shiftiness, this is kind of goal of the year type candidate. I know that the NHL's got the commercial going right now. But for me, that's one of the prettiest goals we've seen, Sean, through 74 games this year.
Yeah, and important for a player like now. I talk about repeatable goals. I've talked in the past about what I thought Cole needed to do to become a better player. I think Cole kind of followed those exact things, became better at those things, and it's what made him a better player. Now, you can kind of, okay, so let's watch Josh Morrissey comes into the league. He comes out of the WHL. He's an offensive defenseman, right? And we always hear that story by Paul Maurice for years and years and years about how he's never before seen a guy go into the off season with a weakness and then come back, and that's his strength, right? So for a long time in this league, Josh Morrissey was just a really good defensive defenseman with a little bit of an offensive upside. And then now he's finally gone back and he's found that offensive side of him that's making him one of the most dangerous, if not one of the best defensemen in the entire NHL. Top 5 for sure. I personally, top 5. Let's just make sure we put him in that category. But that's what happens to players is, unless you are super, super elite talent, like even right now, you can see Macklin Celebrini comes into the league, and what makes Macklin Celebrini really, really good, he's already good at. And the scary part about him is that those skills he's just going to refine and get better at and better at and better at. So you can already see the path to what he does. But a lot of other players, what they need to do is they need to come in and they need to learn the game first, learn the defensive part of it, learn all, what being a pro is all about, and then start slowly adding back things. Some players never get there. And I think a lot of times some players never get there because the confidence disappears and you're like, well, I was a scorer in junior, but this is what I needed to do to stick at the NHL level. And I think with a lot of those players, what happens is they get stunted because their belief that they can be the scorer they were in junior at the NHL level, it's gone. Whereas you see a guy like Josh Morrissey, maybe I don't think anyone thought that he was going to get where he got to the last 3 years. I don't think necessarily he thought he was until Rick Bowness came in and said, this is what I think you could be and this is where you should be. So that belief unlocked some belief in him and he got there. It's all a way of me getting to it and saying, I think a goal like this by Cole Perfetti is important because Cole Perfetti walked into the league and he tried to be a player like this right off the bat, a little bit fancy, a little bit, score from distance or do things, believe me, you'll have seen him score goals like this at the OHL level, right? And then you get to the NHL and you find out, well, you can't do that as a young player in the NHL, right? And so what Cole Perfetti needed to do is he needed to re-envision himself as a different kind of player. Perfetti, whatever people want to say is the thing that he needed to do. And that was what kind of got him to going to the hard areas, embracing the grind, doing those things that have made him into the player that he's become over the last little while. Why I think this is important, Ken, is because this is a player who is now, after something like that, you realize, hey, remember that stuff that I could do, the Harlem Globetrotter stuff that I also had in my game that I probably leaned on a little bit too much in the OHL or in juniors or whatever, that I thought maybe I couldn't do that anymore at the NHL level? Yeah, I still can. I'm good enough to do that at this level. I can pull this off. It is just another tool in the toolkit of a player who looked to be not too long ago, Ken, a one-dimensional player who showed up in only a very specific kind of game and a very specific kind of way, who now is becoming a complete player. Hit the fast forward button on the old cassette tape of development at some point in the season, got to a place. Him adding this now is just going to give him, hey, I can go to the front of the net, I can score. Maybe I can go tip one in. Maybe I can grind, find a little bit of space in the front, but I can also still do this here time and again. And if it's one of those nights where the other team kind of gives up on it, that's when I'm going to slice and dice you from distance. We're going to get 4 points. This to me is an important goal because Cole Perfetti, it allows him to reimagine himself as the player he was in junior and that he can bring that to the NHL level. And we saw perfectly with a guy like Josh Morrissey that can get lost in a player and maybe never found again. I'm sure it has with a lot of different players. Rick Bowness helped him find it again. It's good that Cole Perfetti is finding it this young. I don't think this is the last highlight reel goal we're going to see from Cole Perfetti, Ken.
No doubt. And the other thing too, so we talked about the importance of the other stuff. We've often talked about his maturity, and Kim Sawchuk talked about, I use the word processor, his ability to process the game as fast as he does. It helps make up for any, he's not a burner, but he's able to get to A to B and he's working on his skating. We know that. But his ability to anticipate and all of those things, but doing the other things is nice, and going to the hard areas is smart. But Cole Perfetti is also becoming a point of game player here, down the stretch when it matters most, when the checking is toughest. Scott O'Neill was asked about Cole Perfetti again today, and he's getting asked about him a lot, Sean, because you have to ask about Cole Perfetti because of how well that he's playing. And he just, again, he reiterated the importance of his mental maturity and not being as hard on himself, and, letting the game kind of come to him rather than getting frustrated, when he went through another lengthy drought this year, not as long as last year, but he was still finding ways to be effective within the game. And first and foremost, you gotta allow yourself to know that it's hard. And Scott O'Neill talked about it. First 2 years, Perfetti had season-ending injuries, Sean. He did not have access to games, whatever it was, whether it was 45 or 55 to 82. Those are the hardest games to play for a team that is, trying to go down the stretch run. And now what he's been able to do is not only adapt to the game. Yes, last year we know it was frustrating for him to sit down the stretch, and it lit a fire. Like, he honestly talked about how much it hurt him to have to go through that, but it's allowed him to become a better player. And Sean, Rick Bowness said it at the time. I did this to Jason Robertson, not to punish him, but to prepare him for greatness. And Rick Bowness wasn't trying to take credit for Jason Robertson's ascension, but he's saying that, look at Jason Robertson. He went from being a healthy scratch to being a 100-point player. And again, I'm not here banging on the table saying that Cole can be a 100-point player, but he's certainly tracking to be an 82-plus point player. And then the rest is up to him, right? If he continues to mature and everything else, that's what he could grow into eventually. But right now, his ability to go to the blue paint, the hard areas, get involved, mix it up with people like Philip Roenick, that's important for him, because guess what? It's hard in game 74. You know when it's going to be really hard? In round 1, and then in round 2. And if a team is fortunate to get to round 3 or 4, it gets harder and harder as the playoffs go deeper. And Cole Perfetti is finding his stride at the absolute perfect time if you're a member of the Winnipeg Jets.
I want to bring this in because, and I'm going to thank this. Well, here's a couple things. Graydon Kramer says, kudos to the Jets for a long list of notable player developments we can't buy, so we build. There was another one here that I wanted to bring in, but someone was comparing. Let me just find it here. Okay. Ishaboy Bruce says, in my opinion, Fetz is most improved Jet. Samberg's been fantastic, but he's been on a steady upward trajectory. Cole had to figure out how to adapt and thrive, and he's done. I think this is worth a conversation. I think this is worth the Flame and Comfort hot take of the game, because I think it's going to create a good conversation that you want to have here, Ken. So Ishaboy Bruce, you, my friend, are the winner of the Flame and Comfort hot take of the game. Hot take in a good way. And you know what, folks, that's your KNR hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort is soon moving. You'll find it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. Ken, I want you to weigh in on this. Better year of development so far. I actually think, and at one time I would have said no one was touching Samberg, but boy, oh boy, the way things are going, who do you think has had the greater leap this year out of those two players?
Well, I'm going to give an edge to Samberg here, just because I think the position is tougher. Dylan Samberg has grown into the second best defenseman on the Winnipeg Jets here, and that's not a oversight or knock on either, Dylan DeMello or Neil Pionk. Dylan Samberg has been leaned on in all situations. His ice time continues to rise, and so have his responsibilities. So to me, I think, because I'll just put it this way, it's a tougher jump to go from a third pairing guy to a matchup guy on a second pairing who is basically getting second defense minutes and sometimes top pairing matchups, Sean. So for me, I would give Samberg, 2 months ago, I would have given him a wide edge. Now I'm calling it a slight edge because of how Perfetti has narrowed the gap again, Perfetti we knew was going to grow into a top 6 player, for lack of a better term. He was a top 6 player for 60 games last year, maybe 60 plus. To be frank. And even when he came into the lineup in the playoffs in game 5, he came in, got a goal, made a contribution. So I would just say he's traveled a further distance. And also, too, I mean, look, recency bias is something that kind of catches us once in a while. Perfetti still had 19 goals last year, even though he had a 23-game spell where he had 2 assists and no goals. So he's just now catching up to his 19. And, can he get 4 in the next 8 games to get to 20? I mean, of course he can, the way that he's playing. Is it a guarantee? No, but he is coming up on a situation where he can be a 20-goal guy. And once he becomes a 20-goal guy, Sean, I think we're talking about Nino Niederreiter and Nikolai Ehlers territory. Once Cole Perfetti hits 20, it's going to be something that he continually does. In terms of overall development, I think both have come leaps and bounds. But I also would say, too, I mean, Perfetti's baseline, even though the drop from top 6 to out of the lineup in a healthy scratch is more precipitous, I think that Samberg going from more of a steady third pairing guy to becoming a second pairing, but also like high end responsibility, 20, like he's added almost 6 minutes of ice time per game, Sean. Like that's a lot of ice time. And now you're going up not against the third and fourth lines, with all due respect to third and fourth lines, you're going up against the top end guys each and every night. So I think when you're grading on the curve, I'm giving a slight edge to Samberg, but what about you?
Well, Renny never misses an opportunity to pat himself on the back, that's for sure. And so one of the early things that I said that I think showed really well and that we've seen ever since is when Dylan Samberg went down with injury, this team struggled without him. This guy has gone, and you want to talk about it, the last thing we saw of Dylan Samberg in the playoffs last year was Dylan Samberg struggled in the playoffs last year. He didn't have that good of a playoff, and I think that left a lot of us thinking that when Brendan Dillon, who I thought was one of the better defenseman to stand up in that series against the Colorado Avalanche before he got that gruesome hand injury that took him out for the remainder of the series. The idea of him stepping up and taking over that spot and the above replacement, below replacement factor to that, I think people thought was going to be a little bit ugly. And I am one of the people who thought that right from day one. Samberg has been phenomenal. So if you're talking about grading the curve and where these two players are, the one thing you have to say about Samberg is Samberg walked in and his game was here last year, and then his game got here. And it's been there the entire year. There's that one game. He had a rough game, Ken. And they ended up scoring 2 goals off of a couple turnovers of his. I can't remember who specifically it was they were playing in that game. But one bad game is all I can think of with this player. And then other than that, all I see is this suffocating blanket that just shuts things down. And this, again, this is a 3-1 victory by the Winnipeg Jets. You'd said it. I'm glad, and we'll get to that later, but I'm glad that there was a specific save made by Connor Hellebuyck in the third period, because I was having a hard time finding a save of the game worthy save because the Winnipeg Jets just don't allow tough situations to unfold in front of their goaltender. Dylan Samberg is a huge part of that. So I don't think that you can kind of beat what he did, because I think having that big, it's kind of like what Jacob Slavin did for Team USA at the Four Nations. Their eyes were open to how important a defenseman like that is to a team that is trying to do big and special things. Right now, clearly we know what Josh Morrissey does. He's always jumping up in the play. He doesn't give up anything defensively. He's a lot more dynamic. You've got that. But when you get to have that and you've got a Jacob Slavin shutdown type like that, those are massive things to have. And to think that the Winnipeg Jets were going to come into this year with everyone seeing a big fat question mark there, and instead of there being a question mark is a Jacob Slavin type shutdown guy, it's hard to go beyond that. That said, Cole Perfetti, the turnaround that I've seen from him here is one that I did not think was going to be possible. And so no one should think it's possible for a player to turn around and find their game that quickly. I guess Dylan Holloway did it this year in
Right.
St. Louis, Ken, but Dylan Holloway's done it for the entirety of the season. Cole Perfetti figured this out on the fly. Now, maybe because the Winnipeg Jets are the type of team that they are, as dangerous as they are, they're as deep as they are. So there's a lot of time for one person to go figure out their game. Like, I guess if I had to use a comparable, if you're Marco Rossi, who got taken one pick before Cole Perfetti, he and Cole Perfetti dueled it out for the OHL scoring lead the year that they got drafted. Two very, very similar players in my mind. Now, there's a different path they've taken. Marco Rossi lost a lot of time because he got COVID. Yep. Took a lot of time away from him. At one time, he wasn't sure he was ever going to be able to play again. So there's a different thing here. But if you're the Minnesota Wild, A, you're not as deep as the Winnipeg Jets, but B, because of all the injuries that have happened, they are leaning on Marco Rossi in a way that the Winnipeg Jets haven't had to lean on Cole Perfetti, right? So Marco Rossi can't kind of say, okay, well, this guy's got it taken care of. This guy's got it taken care of. I've got a team full of guys taking care of everything. I can take the time to figure this out. That's a little bit of a luxury. But that said, how many players in that same situation would have got into that situation and just looked around and been like, well, I feel like I'm, not part of this, or I'm not contributing, or that everyone else is doing this. No, Cole Perfetti went out and he said, okay, what makes this team great is they're great defensively. They're great with the puck. They're great, along the boards. So I'm going to go and I'm going to become that. So I'm a Winnipeg Jet. That's how you become a Winnipeg Jet. Cole Perfetti went out and first of all said, tick, I'm a Winnipeg Jet. Now, what can I add to that? Oh, well, I need to start scoring more in big games. Well, tick, I'm going to take care of that. And how he did that is I'm going to go to the dirtier areas. I'm going to add elements and layers to my game that didn't really exist at the NHL level before this. And tick, he went and did that. And maybe I'm speaking out of turn, or maybe I'm speaking a little bit too early on this. But if I go out and I see Cole Perfetti starting to add what he did tonight and become more consistent to that, then he's adding that other tick. This is like a C plus student shooting up into B plus A minus territory and doing it in almost no time, right? Like if I were a teacher grading in a class, I would have been like, hey kid, I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up, because whatever you're doing, it's working and you are shooting to the top of the class here. That's what we've seen from Cole Perfetti. Not giving up on himself, Ken, has most definitely paid off for Cole Perfetti. And you know what that means. If you're looking for or to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, you want to give Sweet Lou a shout out while we're at it?
You bet. For the folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, buying, selling, curious what the house in the corner might be going for these days, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Sparky here, who I know has been given this already at one point, but it is another guy who very well could have won the Flame and Comfort Hot Take Award on this night, where he says, we can't forget what Rick Bowness did for this Jets organization. When I heard he was hired, I thought we are done. Bones put his team on a great path to success. Arneal gets big credit too. This is just an absolutely pristine, perfect take here, because I'll say this. The one thing about Rick Bowness is there was a whole bunch of things that he said that he wanted to do. The Jets have achieved all that. And if you think about the idea that it's basically now, this is year 3 afterwards, I'm not taking anything away from Scott Arneal, but Rick Bowness went and did a lot of heavy lifting in those first 2 years, taking a defensively deficient team that had fallen out of the playoffs and turning them around, and taking all the things that had been the weakness of this Winnipeg Jets organization for a bunch of years and turned them into a strength. And there's another one that I was thinking about, and I wanted to talk about this quickly. What got me thinking about it, it's the Connor Hellebuyck thing. Watched the broadcast, heard everyone, with the Hart Trophy votes and all those kind of things. My take remains the same on this, and I was thinking about this because tonight is just another example of this. I see one save tonight that Connor Hellebuyck I thought was truly tested on. The rest of it, a lot of them are dribbling shots that are just making it to the front of the net, or they're shots that are floated from the point that he is so easily able to see that he's able to deflect them with his blocker as passes to his players. I mean, hey, that tells you about how good he is that he's doing that. It also tells you how challenging the other team is making it in a situation like that, or how his team is not allowing the other team to challenge them. But it got me thinking, Ken, about one of the things that Rick Bowness, so everyone knows my take on this. I've said it before. I feel like Connor Hellebuyck there's a race now for Hart Trophy, and there's a bunch of cars out on the track, and they're ripping and they're spinning around. And I think Connor Hellebuyck is a Lamborghini that is well capable of winning that race, but it's a Lamborghini, in my opinion, that has had to just sit in the garage for the vast majority of the season because he hasn't been used in a way that those other cars have been used to try and win that race. Tonight's an example of it. The last game was an example of it. In fact, I'm starting to think that the average game of the Winnipeg Jets is a game like tonight in which Connor Hellebuyck goes unchallenged for the vast majority of it. Is he ready when he's called upon? We'll get to the keg save of the game. And the answer to that is typically yes. But when you're talking about the spectacular feats of Hart Trophy candidates, I personally, this is my take on it. People know it. I don't think he's had to be spectacular. I think he's had to be very, very kind of average Connor Hellebuyck in order to get where the Jets are going. It got me thinking on this process, though. Rick Bowness, if you remember, had talked about, we're not going to play Connor Hellebuyck in less games. We are interested in the idea of trying to get him more rest heading into the playoffs so he's a better rested goaltender, but we're not interested in sitting him for an extra 10 games a year in order to do that. So what we are going to do is we are going to give him rest in games. We're going to make the shots that he faces easier. We're going to make the amount of shots that he faces easier. We're going to get him rest within those games. And Ken, I just think now when I talk about what I see from Connor Hellebuyck this year and what I think is kind of like the Achilles heel of the Hart Trophy argument for him, which is not his fault, the fact that he plays behind a great team. But it makes me think this is another thing that Rick Bowness set out to achieve for the Winnipeg Jets, to make rest and make life easier for Connor Hellebuyck to the degree that he goes unchallenged quite often. This is just another thing Rick Bowness set out to have the Winnipeg Jets achieve that they have fully and finally achieved.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they're making life easier. I still think that he's, as you said, he's going to have to do it in the playoffs, and that's what that's the biggest thing for him. I do think there's still times in the game where he gets challenged and he's up to the task and everything else. So, but yeah, I mean, making life easier for Connor Hellebuyck, which has made the 60 plus starts, will be less taxing. I mean, that's a fact. So, 8 games left. It's probably 2 starts for Eric Comrie. Maybe there's a third in there. I think you'll probably get the front end of the back-to-back. They have 1 back-to-back left, Chicago, then Edmonton, Sean. I probably am, that's 1 start for sure. I could see Comrie getting a start on this road trip, either against the Vegas Golden Knights or against Utah Hockey Club. Again, complicating matters. His wife, Haley, is due kind of in early April, so I think the Comries are on baby watch, much like the Connors were earlier this week. So sort of see how everything plays out there. But yeah, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck is having a spectacular season. I mean, we had this debate last game. We don't have to get into it again. But yeah, making life easier in front of him, allowing Hellebuyck to know where the majority of shots are coming from is important. And it is important for a goalie to make things less taxing. It is taxing to be a 60 plus goalie workhorse like he is, like Andrei Vasilevsky is, like UC Saros has often been. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly one of the most important things. I mean, the Jets aren't perfect defensively. I mean, they've gotten a lot better at it, and they're going to have to, again, do it when it matters most. But their formula has gotten to the point where, yes, I mean, they don't need Connor Hellebuyck to steal games for them on a regular basis. And that used to be kind of the expectation and not the, it used to be the rule and not the expectation. Now it's more becoming the expectation of the rule because the team is better in front of him. But again, I think he's having an exceptional season, and I know you do too. So we'll sort of see what happens. But what about, do you agree? Is it 2 starts for Comrie, or is there some way that he could get a third in there somewhere?
Yeah,
It's
you
2,
take that
right?
one. You take that one.
I think it's 2
I'm
for me.
I'm always disinterested in the how many games does the backup goalie get. I don't know why. It's just. But I got to say, I love this. This is the old Maytag. Maybe that's the nickname for Connor Hellebuyck, is the Maytag repairman, because Maurice nails it here when he says Helly is often the chairman of the board, spelled Bored. Okay, Ken, get to the awards that we do have here. Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, no, we had a couple there. We had a couple in the game. Which is the last one?
I can jump if
you
you
go
want.
first,
So
and then I have a couple. Yeah, the Miller one. Yeah,
Colin Miller's got a good one there where the player gets in behind him.
it was Connor Garland. Yeah, sorry about
Connor
that.
Garland, a little bit of a spark plug, gets in behind him, and I just like the calmness with which Colin Miller, rather than panicking and rather than doing something where he takes, like a penalty or something like that, or reaches and grabs, he just very calmly, goes from one shoulder all the way around to the other one and just chips the puck off of Garland's stick. There was also a couple plays. So before Cole Perfetti scores his goal, the Jets are kind of in a little bit of trouble. They're on their heels in their own zone, and one of the Vancouver Canucks defenseman flips it in towards Luke Schenn. Luke Schenn grabs it and just very calmly holds on to it, as it's just like it looks like a bee attack around him, and he just very calmly holds on to it. And what he does in that situation, I think this is the faith that you get from playing with the kind of players that you have, is he just allows the Jets at that point to just get back into their structure, right? And in the end, he ends up moving the puck up ice. The Jets break it out. It ends up in a Cole Perfetti goal. But this is just, I think, a really, really smart play where it's like, even if he does get the puck chipped off his stick in that in that moment, the fact that he holds on to it and gives his team a chance to regain their structure, even if he loses the puck in that situation, he's got faith that now that we're back in our structure, they're not going to score anyway. I just thought that was a great play. And there was another one by Luke Schenn where there was a pass from the point to the side of the net that was going to be one guy in all alone, tipped on Connor Hellebuyck, and tipped away by Luke Schenn. So there was plenty of Kenny and Renny OG Johnson Group got you covered plays of the game on my end tonight. Anything for you that stands out?
Sorry, say that again.
Anything?
No, that's the one. No, the Miller one was the one for me. Yep. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's the one that I texted you. I was just trying to make sure I didn't miss one in there.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, well, that's the Kenny and Renny OGs. The Johnson Group got you covered plays of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that brings us to our hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, you know what? I texted this one to you. We thought we had the clear-cut winner was on Teddy Bluger, but after you went down to get the post over in Washington there, Sean, really good save by Hellebuyck on Quinn Hughes. So I'm going to go with that one, even though maybe the Bluger one was a little bit more of a important save based on the timeliness at a 2-1 game rather than a 3-1, but the ability to shut down Quinn Hughes on a day where the Jets had kind of kept him under wraps with the goalie out and early pull and all of that. I'm going to go with that as my keg save of the game today.
Yeah, I think, if we go to, and we've heard it a whole bunch of times on this show and we hear it, I think it's a little bit of a cliche at times, and other folks lean on it. But if we're going to the idea of the timely saves, big goaltenders, great goaltenders make timely saves. The Bluger save is made very shortly before the Jets go and make this a 2-1 game. Clearly, if he lets it in at that time, it's potentially a different result in this game. So I will go with that. I was desperately searching for something before that and thinking this keg save of the game thing it used to be such an easy assignment, Ken, and it's getting harder and harder because the Winnipeg Jets don't require of their goaltender as many big game saves as they used to have.
Well, it was almost going to have to be Demko on the tip on Nino Niederreiter, right? That crazy tip early in the third where it might have been high sticking, but it was going to be hard to prove, right? You talked about the replay and the challenge early on. I mean, based on where the shot came from, are you going to find a definitive angle that was a high stick? And I actually loved the kind of bicycle kick. You just don't see it very often, right? The save that Demko made, he kind of kicks his pad out. So that gets an honorable mention as well.
Yeah, no doubt. That's our hashtag. Well, mine and Ken's hashtag, the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And if I remember correctly, it was Narf.
Yeah, that's it.
Who won?
They were
Narf,
in the chat room earlier today.
In our chat room earlier today. Narf, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. All right, Ken, anything to say before we get going?
No, everything is good here. Quick early flight. Just quickly, just for folks who maybe are not as aware, what was your day like today on Ovi Watch as he got one step closer?
Yes, the Washington Capitals lost 8-5. At one time, people who tried to compare Logan Thompson to Connor Hellebuyck. Yeah, this was a game, and hey, this is something that I should say because I know when I it was actually like the perfect comment that I kind of laugh and chuckle at. You can't have an opinion that that disagrees with someone without someone accusing you of trying to take it away from Connor Hellebuyck. So again, this to me is just the most like ridiculous argument I get back at me when I try to say to people like, listen, give the Winnipeg Jets defense and the team its credit for what they are. It's not taking away from Connor Hellebuyck. It's adding to the coloring in of who the Winnipeg Jets are, but you're always going to have people who are worried about it and accusing you of taking things away. One thing that I'm able to build on the Connor Hellebuyck, and as I've said this before, I think Connor Hellebuyck is the walk-off Vezina Trophy candidate. I think he's a Hart Trophy top 3 candidate. I brought it up on national TV. Hey, it takes something to put your name behind something like that. So when there's people who are accusing me of trying to take things away, I don't know why I would be taking away from the arguments that I've made in the past. But one thing I can add to it is I haven't seen a game this year, probably not last year either, in which Connor Hellebuyck lost a game for his team, like outright lost a game for his team. Logan Thompson had 2 shots floated past him that he whiffed on from the point, and a couple other ones. By my count, I think there were 3 goals in this game, and then there was an empty netter. So the Washington Capitals, and let me be clear, the Washington Capitals I didn't think played a very good game. Their coach definitely didn't think they played a very good game, but it was probably enough to win this game 4-3, and they don't, because their goaltender just fell out from below them like a trap door on this night tonight. You don't see that happening to Connor Hellebuyck. I don't remember it happening. There's a couple games here, and not a lot of them, where you look and he didn't win the Sean Reynolds Award, but he didn't, cost his team points in the standings, and that's what I saw here tonight. I also saw Alexander Ovechkin score 1. I thought it was 2. He took a ripper from the point. It ended up being Pierre-Luc Dubois who tipped it in past the goaltender. So I thought he'd chewed up a third of the goals I need to be on the road for it. In the end, it's 1. I got 5 more to go. Tomorrow I hop on a plane, head to Boston, do the Boston game after that. They do back-to-back, so I've got to fly to Raleigh for them playing the Hurricanes after that. And then, Ken, you're gonna be proud of me, Ken, who is
I am
still have hit up every ballpark in
yes, sir. I have. Yeah, we got the cycle complete.
So no cycle complete for me, but I haven't been to Baltimore yet. They weren't around in this couple of days where I was in Washington. I'm going to take a very early flight in the morning, like 4 a.m., 3:30 a.m. I'm going to have to get up, Ken, to get back to Washington so I can hop on the train and go out and see the Baltimore Orioles at Camden Yards, which I have yet to see. So
you'll love it. One of the best parks in the bigs, buddy. One of the best. Worth doing. Worth the early wake up.
Absolutely loving it. Anything else to say before we go, Ken?
No, just fun. I mean, for people who don't know, the Jets now 3 points up on the Capitals and 6 points up on the Stars in the 2 races, but both of those teams, I believe, have 1 game in hand. So it's a big week ahead for all 3 of the teams. The one that Sean is in person covering the Jets from afar, and we'll see if the Stars can keep up their hot streak as well. And there go the St. Louis Blues, winning their 9th in a row over the Colorado Avalanche, no less. So things getting really interesting here.
Calling it now, Jets and Wild in the first round. And JC's exclamation point says Sean thrives on the haters like that star bowlers. I don't know if I've ever said anything as quotable as that star bowler, but Jason, I feel like I'm seeing here right now. I definitely the haters, when it starts coming in, keep it coming, folks. Absolutely love that stuff. Anyways,
I'm sorry, quickly. I know that for folks who were not aware of what I meant on the wake up call, I'm not criticizing all fans, especially not the ones in the chat room. I'm saying wake up to the people that said Scott Arniel should be fired. You can obviously have your opinions on the lines. My point was that generally the coach has a pretty good idea of why he's putting those guys together.
Yeah. Okay.
You thrive on the haters. I'm trying to provide context on why I'm going where
you're
I go.
Trying to keep them at bay. I'm inviting them over to my hot tub for a barbecue afterwards. All right. That's it for us. All you folks out there, we really appreciate you being around. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we would implore you to appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, and their Wake Up Call, Flame and Comfort, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnson Group, the Keg, and TCB, Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you folks. We will do this all over again after the next one. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.